Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fabio Teresino, and welcome to the InduSoft Web Studio webinar about energy management systems. I'll be co-hosting this webinar with Mr. Tom Allinson from Noble Conservation Solutions. I will provide a very brief introduction about the typical architectures in energy management systems. I'll talk briefly about unique advantages of InduSoft Web Studio to deploy this kind of projects. And then I'll talk about some specific case studies and real-world applications developed within the InduSoft Web Studio for energy management system. Mr. Allinson will talk a little bit about the background of projects that they deployed within the InduSoft Web Studio for energy management system. Noble Conservation Solutions is a partner of InduSoft and system integrator specifically for this area. He'll provide a background about his company, about the projects, the situation at the customers prior to the system integration. He will describe the solution within the InduSoft Web Studio, and then talk about the benefits that the customers in Noble Conservation Solution itself achieved by deploying the solution, and finally talk a little bit about future plans. If you have any questions about during the webinar, feel free to write your questions at the Q&A box from the webinar or even at the chat box, and both Mr. Allinson and myself will be answering your questions at the end of the webinar. Having said that, just getting started on the typical architecture. This is the most simple architecture possible. You would have one device running in the InduSoft Web Studio, talking to the devices, remote IOs, controllers, even a PLC if necessary, but pretty much reading data from the meters, from the sensors, and providing this data to the user, typically with a local database to store history information, so you can visualize how the variables changed, the trend of variables over time. InduSoft supports different types of thin clients, so in addition to the station that is running the software, you can install what we call secure viewer thin clients in additional terminals. Could be LCD displays, could be other regular computers, and users can visualize data from the energy management system from this remote terminal. So one of the applications that we discuss here is the University of Texas. They have those LCD displays on each building, displaying the online information about that building, the energy consumption, and also the history of consumption for each building. So in each building they have a secure viewer thin client, but they just have one application running in one server collecting data from all the sensors. So InduSoft can run in this server station, collect data from many different buildings, many different sensors, save data to a central database, and then just provide visualization information to one or more thin clients via TCP/IP, via a Ethernet network. And on those thin clients, you do not have to install in the InduSoft Web Studio, nor the license, nor the application. And you can visualize the information also from a web browser, either running on PDAs and tablets like iPhones, iTablets, Android devices, or a regular computer running Internet Explorer, for example. We are seeing more and more customers requiring this kind of architecture, and we have deployed many successful systems like this, where you have different RTUs, different buildings, different stations, but we consolidate information from all those sites to a central server, which typically is running on the cloud. So the local InduSoft Web Studio is collecting data from the sensors, saving data locally, and if the link with the cloud is good, forwarding the data to the central server on the cloud. In some cases, instead of having InduSoft on each one of the sites, you can configure InduSoft Web Studio running on the cloud to read data directly from the sensors, from the controllers on each one of the sites. It works just fine, and this server can work as a portal, as a web portal for remote thin clients, web thin clients. But in this case, if you do not have InduSoft Web Studio running locally on the site, if the link, physical link between the cloud server and each site is lost, the information from that site will be lost as well. The server will not be able to collect the data while the link is lost. So having InduSoft Web Studio running at each site, in addition to InduSoft Web Studio running on the cloud, provides you with the store locally and forward to the cloud feature. So even if the link between the cloud server and the local site is lost for a few minutes or hours or days, you do not lose the data, because the local version of InduSoft keeps saving data locally and eventually pushes this data to the cloud server, and then this information is available to any thin client that connects to the server. And using the built-in security system from InduSoft Web Studio, you can filter the information available to each remote thin client, to each remote user with a web browser, based on the username and password. So you could have group of users that have access to one site or a set of sites, and another group of users that have access to the information from other sites, and so on and so forth. So again, the main idea is data acquisition, collect data from different sensors, from different meters, different controllers, and consolidate this data into local and or remote databases, and make this information available to remote users through cell phones, PDAs, or regular computers. Really briefly, talking about some advantages of InduSoft Web Studio. The main one is the ease of use. We were able to develop complete energy management systems in a matter of a few days, and if we had to develop everything from the scratch in C++, C#, using a high-level programming language, it would take literally months or even years to create a system with all the features that we have pre-built in InduSoft Web Studio. So using InduSoft Web Studio, we can deploy the systems, design and deploy the systems very easily in a very short period of time using an off-the-shelf product, which is InduSoft Web Studio. Plus, you can deploy it on any operating system. Since 1997, InduSoft has evolved the product and kept it compatible with the operating systems currently supported by Microsoft. So nowadays, you can run InduSoft applications on Windows CE, Windows Embedded, XP, 7, Vista 2003, 2008 server, 32 or 64 bits, and we have already tested the product with the beta version of Windows 8. So when Windows 8 becomes available to the market, InduSoft will be readily available to Windows 8. So we take the ownership and the cost to keep evolving the product and keeping the product compatible with all the platforms supported by Microsoft. Moreover, we have kept the commitment to keep 100% of compatibility with applications created in the past. So you see a real screenshot here from an application created back in 1997 with version 1.0 of the software, and we can literally copy this project to a new computer with Windows 7 and run this same application with the most current version of InduSoft Web Studio. So it's all about protecting the investment you make when you design your screens, your applications, your templates with InduSoft Web Studio. Database connectivity is a key feature of InduSoft Web Studio, especially for energy management system, where typically we store a lot of history data into database or historians, and built-in features like store and forward from InduSoft are unique and very useful to deploy the kind of architecture we discussed a few minutes ago. And from InduSoft, you can save and retrieve data from any SQL relational database like Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, Sybase, MySQL, using standard technologies like ODBC, OLIDB, ADO, and ADO.NET. And you do not have even to write scripts. There are built-in wizards, built-in tools in the product, and you can very easily save and retrieve data from those databases to create different kinds of graphical interfaces, dashboards, web-based reports, and all kind of statistical graphs showing, for instance, Pareto graphs, pie charts, raw data, all kind of analysis for the data that you are collecting from the sensors and saving into the database. And all this information, those dashboards, are available not only locally on the computer where InduSoft Web Studio is running, but also from remote computers, remote stations where you have a web browser. So from the deployment point of view, you can create the application within the InduSoft Web Studio and then deploy it to embedded devices, local HMIs or regular PCs, or even to the cloud. And then visualize the information from web thin clients using Internet Explorer, where you can visualize all the screens, all the graphical interfaces. Secure Viewer, which is a thin client as well, but instead of using Internet Explorer, you install the InduSoft thin client host called Secure Viewer, and it displays the application in full screen mode. And Studio Mobile Access, which is the solution for all the platforms, including Macintosh, Safari browser from Apple, iPhones, iPads, Android devices, any web browser. And there is a version based on HTML1 for simple devices, and a version based on HTML5 for devices that with a web browser that supports HTML5, where you can have more graphical screens, graphical dashboards, navigation, online and history trends, as well as the summary of alarms and even the ability to acknowledge the alarms from the device. And the InduSoft has built-in tools for remote notification as well. So when alarms happen, InduSoft can send alarm messages by email or text messages, and then you can connect to the system using your mobile device or a regular PC and monitor or troubleshoot the situation, make decisions based on online data and history data collected by the system. Finally, connectivity is a key point for those projects as well. When you install InduSoft Web Studio, more than 240 protocols are readily supported by the software because all the drivers are installed along with the product. Drivers for standard protocols like Modbus, RTU and ASCII, Modbus TCP, Modbus Plus, even IEC protocols or DNP for electrical areas, for all the Omron PLCs, Beckhoff, GE, Fanuc, Allen Bradley, Siemens. All those drivers are installed along with the product. And in addition to the drivers, we also install the OPC clients for all the major OPC specifications, including OPC-DA, XML, .NET, and OPC-UA. InduSoft was the first company to release an OPC-UA client, not only for PC platforms, but also for Windows CE. So just to mention a few case studies, this one is available to download from the InduSoft website, and it's quite interesting, the bottom line, the feedback from the customer, noticing that after they were able to monitor and control the pumping systems, the irrigation systems in this project, they were able to reduce the power consumption from 30 to 70%, depending on the time of the day, and reduced the water consumption in as much as 90%. It's a huge saving for a system that paid by itself in a matter of a few months. This is another real application developed within the InduSoft Web Studio at the University of Texas. Is the second biggest campus in the United States. They have more than 280 buildings and more than 3,000 meters for like electrical meters, domestic water, chilled water, and steam as well. And InduSoft collects data from all those meters from each one of the buildings from a central server, saves data to a central historian, and then we provide this web-based interface where any user can select any building from the campus and then visualize online data and history data about the meters associated to each building. So it's a large energy management system that has been successfully deployed at the University of Texas. And in the InduSoft website, there is a webinar about building automation where Anthony from UT, an engineer from UT, talks in details about this project. So now I'd like to pass control to Mr. Allenson from Noble Conservation Solutions, and he will talk about his experiences with InduSoft Web Studio and real projects designed and deployed by Noble Conservation Solutions, and all the details about especially the business portion of those projects and the benefits retrieved by the customers. So Tom, you are the host now. Feel free to share your desktop and start your presentation whenever you are ready.
Excellent. Fabio, can you see my desktop at this point in time?
Not yet. You have to click on the Share My Desktop button.
Excellent. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. There you go. Now we can see it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. We certainly appreciate it. Noble Conservation Solutions is a conservation solutions company based in Minnesota, in the central part of the northern United States. And we have clients across the country, as well as some international opportunities as well. We do a number of different things. It includes energy management systems, as well as lighting systems, and also solar and HVAC efficiency as well. We're very much looking forward to helping you understand how InduSoft is helping us realize our full potential, as well as helping our clients realize the full potential, some of the savings they can have once they learn how to control and better manage the energy use that they've got. Today I just want to quickly talk about InduSoft and its main leverage points, getting right to the value associated with what we saw in InduSoft and why we chose to work with InduSoft. Then obviously I want to talk about the industry itself, give a little framing perspective, talk a little bit more about our company and some of the services we do so you understand the direction that we approach this from and how InduSoft fits into our company's strategic direction as one of our primary tools. And then obviously the system itself, showing you some of the features, functions, and benefits, as well as the screenshots of the UI that we've developed and some of the information we're capturing. And then just come back and revisit again the main points associated with the value of InduSoft, the why we chose it, and our confidence in InduSoft's people, as well as the technology, as well as the leverage points that we have from the technology and how we can help benefit our clients from it. Feel free to give me an email beyond this conversation if at any point in time you have any questions, concerns, or as a certified integrator, we are also open to assisting you on your projects. Many times opportunities are brought to us because of our level of expertise in this area. In our past histories, we've installed about 2,200 energy management systems across about 5 different types. And we have a network of our teammates that include InduSoft experts, as well as experts in different types of controllers and coding to different types of controllers, including essentially one of the top 5 in the world at what he does. So we're very experienced, and we have no problem at all partnering with other businesses. Why we chose InduSoft. InduSoft, we had direct experience with it in our past, working with it on installations with major retailers across the United States, collecting multiple data points, and also going through the install process associated with it. There were situations in which simple things that you and I, like having a cold beer, is very important, but to certain restaurant chains, them making sure that the beer temperature at the tap being cold enough for the client to meet their standards is very important. And the flexibility associated with InduSoft to be able to understand and measure those points was very, very important. We also found an awful lot of flexibility with regards to development of UI. So as we're working with clients and they ask for a certain feature, technically in the background, we can program it into our systems for the most part, and then it becomes an issue of how we present that information, obviously. And by having a flexible, easier interface, it provides us, I think, a very strategic advantage to being able to implement and deploy this in a user-friendly way as well. And then lastly, the familiarity associated with InduSoft and its people. And in the past, we've worked extensively with InduSoft. On our team are former employees of InduSoft, and we felt extremely comfortable with what they've done in the past, and probably just as importantly, them as people, and working with them, being able to trust them and understanding that they're truly trying to understand what we're trying to do for our clients and bring that value to our clients as well. We found them extremely easy to work with. Technically, what we found is that building web pages, obviously for the customer to see the dashboard, having that built in is a key piece. When Fabio mentioned building things in days, it's quite interesting taking this onto the tool and provide some focus associated with it with a clear understanding of requirements, how quickly things can get done, especially in comparison to potentially some of what our competitors have been able to do, or at times, unfortunately, even their internal IT departments that maybe aren't as specialized as we are in the energy management area. Being able to access data and access it well as having the flexibility to take the changes that we make from a database structure and implement it well is also key. In our current development cycle we're doing for some future projects right now, we're actually taking the development cycle and shortening it based on leveraging certain attributes of the database, allowing some of the coding to be kind of offloaded towards that resource. And in this case, obviously, using Microsoft SQL, it's giving us a significant advantage with regards to our development time and meeting the client's expectations there. Trending is a big key. Fabio showed a number of different screens when he was showing some of the interface functions in his last introduction. Being able to help the client understand in fairly real time or near real time what's taking place at a particular building with a particular piece of equipment is key, because as we all know, weather changes quickly, buildings can change, customers can literally leave the door wide open for a while, right? And that obviously can send off an alarm and signal, but if we look at the trending, we can get a much better understanding of what action needs to take place. And in many cases, for our customers, preventative maintenance of the rooftop units, the heating and cooling units, the action is what often costs additional money, as well as satisfaction with their clients, the end users, the store managers, and such, that are looking for them to be able to have very good controls on their environment. And then obviously lastly, the communication options. Right now we're extensively using it across the web, using the cloud. It's working extremely well. We have not yet implemented smart devices, the tablets and things like that, and we are looking forward to doing that in the very near future. Clients have come to expect that, and we certainly want to deliver on that expectation. A little about our industry. We are looking to obviously help organizations save on their energy costs. As an operational cost, virtually every business either pays directly for or pays someone else for their utilities, their electricity, their water, their gas. These are operational costs that do not directly affect, other than their bottom line, their operations. Meaning, how they currently run their business is not affected by if we change out the light bulbs, by if we help them turn their lights off when they're no longer in the building, or help turn down their heat, or turn on their cooling when they're no longer in the building. So we're essentially trying to help them better control these energy costs by moving forward and working on some of these issues that exist. Within the industry for energy management and conservation, there are many different types of skills. We've got the green collar individuals who, there's an awful lot of analysts out there helping people understand what's going on, who's saving what, and how well solar works or doesn't work, as well as wind. There's an awful lot of people on the white collar side that are understanding the financial aspects of it. What are the returns? What are the paybacks? As I'm sure you've seen in recent press releases and articles, electric cars, solar, it's quite a big concern based on how expensive the technology is and how well it works. And there's a little bit of struggle taking place between some of the green collar that really want to help through this technology, but maybe it hasn't as efficient as it should be from a business perspective yet, and the white collar that are very analytical and trying to really look at the bottom line on things. And then lastly, but certainly not leastly, are the blue collar installation and maintenance individuals. A lot of what the white collar is looking for and the return on investment and things that will make the green collar's goal achievable takes place on the installation and maintenance. And I would include in that the implementation costs and the cost of creation of this technology. So what Noble Conservation Solutions does is it better understands those three and marries them together to the point that we are able to create value in the area that all three kind of come together and coexist. So having those three work well together is key, because obviously within certain political environments and getting certain decisions made, having the three different skills be able to work together and have some common goals is extremely important. So NCS plays a role right in the middle with regards to really understanding the financial focus. What we've found is that the decision makers, quite frankly, turn out to be the white collar individuals, although there's an awful lot of recommendations coming to green collar area. The white collar is kind of where it sits, the CFO of the company, the CEO, the individuals that have to answer to shareholders. And we found that in the blue collar area, the efficiencies that we can create and maintain, again, InduSoft is participating in this area, helping us with our installations, our overall product development costs, and our ability to maintain satisfaction with the customers is significantly affecting our ability to satisfy the white collars and maintain ROI, which I'll provide examples for as well. We provide a full suite of solutions. Right here down in the lower left-hand corner is the HVAC control and commissioning, as well as operational efficiency, are just pieces of this overall sustainability focus. If we can help our clients understand each of these elements and be able to efficiently help them implement them, that's obviously a key piece. What we're finding is that an awful lot of projects, return on investment, are received very quickly through the energy management piece, as well as lighting, which I'll get into in a little bit. From a team perspective, understanding a little bit more about the industry that we've got, the experience that we have on our team is quite significant. We've worked with a number of different systems. We've gone through a number of different installs. 2,200 is no small number. We've, in the past, been going at a rate of 8 installs per day, which is a very significant amount of change for any organization. But we're very confident in regards to our ability in the marketplace and the experience that we've had. And again, I think that comes to play with the confidence that you can have in working with InduSoft, as we've had a lot of experience with a lot of different systems, and there's certainly some solid reasons why we chose to go with InduSoft. And we are very well qualified as well. Again, certified from a lighting perspective, energy management perspective. We also have some Six Sigma expertise as well from an operational perspective. So as you move forward and work with your opportunities, We feel it's very important, especially in the management area, energy management area, to be able to have the appropriate disciplines lined up on your team. And if you don't, try to understand who can add to that team and bring those disciplines in, or understand where your gap exists and be able to clearly articulate to the client what that gap is and how they might be able to provide those resources to you to help the project be successful. What we've developed and what I'm going to be showing you in just a second here is an energy management solution that is not at all like the one for University of Texas. And conceptually it is in that we are remotely monitoring buildings and controlling buildings. But the solution we put together is targeted at very small and at times financially challenged organizations and buildings. We've got, for example, a 200 location retail chain in the Southwest United States that's a client of ours. And their buildings are much, much smaller than a large college campus buildings are, much less sophisticated, and their bottom line is a big concern for them. They're owned by essentially one individual, so when that person spends money on things like energy management systems, like lighting systems, this is essentially coming out of his pocket, back pocket, and directly into the business. Now, with that said, we can cost justify what we're doing by looking at the puzzle that we've got established for the cost and where we can get potential savings. Obviously, the top two pieces of the puzzle, the watt saved and the utility rebate, are very focused on the utilities themselves and what the cost of your energy is. And that's obviously determined by how much you use. It's also determined by when you use it. So we look to manage both of those. The utility rebates that are available play right into that. And they're a very interesting little animal, though, because if you can believe it, every utility has a different rebate program for the most part, and that's across the country. And in the same city, you can have multiple utilities. So that in itself tends to be a discipline that we've developed and our customers are being able to take advantage of. There's obviously tax incentives as well that throw into that, based on different government regulations and what's going on with regards to the type of solution you're implementing. And then lastly, but not leastly, is maintenance, preventative maintenance on the system, helping the customers through the InduSoft application and the data we're gathering better understand what's taking place in their stores so they can understand how they can repair it. Much like if your automobile never had a dash light or any indicators on it, and it was running low on oil, you wouldn't really know that until potentially it stopped running or your next maintenance visit. Well, if there was an oil leak, you could ruin your engine before then. And quite frankly, a lot of our customers are running their systems blind right now. So providing them a look at what's going on and ways to increase their operational effectiveness of how they maintain systems are very key. We've also found that looking at maintenance and being able to simply see what's taking place tends to increase the efficiency associated with it. If you can measure and hold people accountable for what they do, there are some significant benefits, some say as much as 15%, that take place right off the bat, simply based on being able to see what's going on and hold people accountable. We've had situations where people have been up on buildings doing some maintenance on a rooftop unit, a heating and cooling unit, and come to discover that the person did not actually do that maintenance. They smoked a number of cigarettes up on the roof and then came back down, but did not switch out the filters and things like that. And obviously, that's a big waste for that company from an hourly expense standpoint. And just as importantly, swapping out the filters can save about 30% efficiency on it. So it's also a long-term cost savings over time. So again, that red corner, the maintenance, is a key piece of this payback puzzle. From a cash flow perspective, this is an example of how, with an investment up front, the payback starts in year 3 and continues on year after year after year by installing systems that, again, allow us to control what's going on and see what's taking place in the building. This is a key piece, obviously, for the financial executives, the white collars, because they can look at this, compare it against other projects that they have, and do so, as I mentioned, with a project that does not affect their existing operations, meaning with financing that's available and sometimes free cash flow that's available, we can actually go in without their business changing at all, without them having to stop a production line or anything like that, and start giving them the payback that does pay on and on for into the future. This is an example of a rooftop unit sitting up on top of a building. If you can imagine, the yellow arrow right here shows the flow coming up from inside the building. We've got a damper here that's open that allows air to come in. We've got a fan that's blowing it and it's moving it over some heating or cooling coils, and then it's putting it back into the building, providing that cycle. We place sensors within these units to help the clients understand how efficiently certain parts of the unit is working, as well as help them understand ways to be able to leverage what's costing them energy, which is generally this piece right here, which is the heating and cooling units, as well as the fans that are blowing, to help them maximize the efficiency there. And obviously, being able to look in and let a client know, a client might be based in Los Angeles and their building is in Texas, and they can look in and understand through the InduSoft application what the discharge temperature in is, and rooftop number 4 at that moment is quite significant in visibility and obviously overall controls and how they should be controlling things. We use thermostats, programmable controllers as thermostats that help us collect this information, obviously taking what's read off the sensors connected to these thermostats, both in indoor, outdoor air temperature and a number of other things, and feeding that into the InduSoft system so they can see it in real time as well as in the database for certain analysis and different types of trending. From a feature function benefit standpoint, I obviously won't go through all of these, but it can get quite expensive when you take some technology that allows you to understand what's taking place in the environment in excruciating detail, allows you to be able to control it centrally at headquarter locations, and then apply different controls and changes to significantly decrease your utility bills, as well as understand how your overall systems are running and how you can impact the cost, the ongoing costs of maintaining and keeping the systems running. We also control lighting. In addition to the rooftop units, we put different, essentially very sophisticated switches in, so we can help our clients turn the lights off when they're no longer in their stores. We've had situations where we've come into stores and found that they run their heating and cooling at the same level 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and they happen to be in an environment that in Texas that gets extremely hot. It can be 110 outside, and they come to the back office that nobody's in the middle of the night at 68 degrees, and they're cooling running to maintain that. In addition to that, we've had stores where their lights are never turned off, which is obviously an issue because you don't need the lights on when people are gone, other than obviously the safety lights. This is using a tremendous amount of energy. By taking out the human element of it through switches and things like that, we're obviously able to decrease their energy use right off the bat, which is a significant piece. This is an example of one of our screens that we're using. It's a scheduling screen that helps us go in and create a 365-day-a-year schedule for their heating and cooling, what temperatures they want to have as their targets when the people are in the building in the form of their occupied temperatures, and also when they're out of the building in the form of their unoccupied temperatures. We go down to the individual rooftop units, so the individual HVAC units, and can control each one of them separately as well, and that allows us to be able to stage and control them uniquely based on how the building is set up. For example, if a building is has the front of the building facing the sun, and there's a lot of windows in front of the building, those different rooftop units that are serving the front of the building might have different settings than the ones that are serving the back. In addition to that, obviously, if the back of the building is northern facing and it's wintertime, there's wind generally coming from that direction, changes can be made to those systems as well to make sure that the system is well balanced. This is an example looking at what's taking place in the individual HVAC units themselves. kind of a dashboard, if you will, how much power is being used in the building, as well as what's taking place from a lighting perspective. With the user interface, we obviously can also supply additional information about the stores and what's taking place. We've also developed kind of a sticky pad piece that allows us to take notes and communicate to other individuals that are looking at the system unique things about that store and those units within the store. And then we obviously have a place for alarms to take place and be able to help clients through automation understand if there's issues and what's going on there. One of the cautions I would say there is that this alarm detection, if you create tolerances that are too tight for the phase that you're going through with regards to the change with the client, it can be almost overwhelming. So certainly in use of alarms, walking in small steps, I think, is a key, especially for the longevity of the project and having the kind of the human assimilation of the technology and the changes taking place. Again, here's another summary of one of our screens with 8 rooftop units in it. We've got different information associated with what power is being used, obviously the power factor, which is the key for calculating energy usage and the rates. And again, you see the information about the store right here. Here we can see a snapshot of how the systems are running. When we click on these, we roll right into that first screen I showed you with the rooftop unit on it, showing the details within the unit itself. So we can hopefully do remote diagnostics and then allow the customer, or at times have the customer have us dispatch their HVAC techs to go out and physically maintain a unit more efficiently. So they will arrive with the right things and they don't arrive for a call that maybe is unnecessary. One of our clients had an issue associated with kind of what they would term as false calls, where they have to dispatch HVAC techs to do something that is extremely simple and could have been done by their store personnel. From a networking standpoint, Fabio mentioned the cloud and being able to have access across the internet. That's essentially what we're trying to leverage here as well. We've got different ways of setting it up based on generally the client's needs and what they're looking at. Here's an example, obviously, of the system across the whole internet. Here's a more specific example of when we're going in and looking at individual stores and how it traces down to the individual controllers and the sensors that are on those controllers, all the way up through switches and other devices that we have that have intelligence on them, out to the internet, and obviously to the critical databases from which decisions are made. Here's another example of how we set things up based on obviously the client's interest. Some clients we're finding want to have their server located at their locations in their data centers, and others are very comfortable having it out in the cloud. So it depends on what's going on and what type of client we're working with. In certain situations, especially if they're taking credit card information, the security associated with their networks can be, I would say, the largest challenge that we have to work through. So not only is the quality of the connection key, but also the security of the connection, which is something that I would encourage everybody to study very well when working with their clients. Again, getting back to what our system does, here's an example of a payback that's approximately a year and a half for a larger building that has 54 rooftop units on. It goes through and shows the energy savings, the utility rebate that's given by the utilities, which is based on incentive from the governments, obviously. The tax incentives, which here I purposely left out based on the fact that I wanted to be as conservative as possible with them, but that can range based on how much the company obviously is making in a year. If the company's not making any money, it doesn't help them to have tax incentives. If they are, it certainly does help. And then finally, maintenance. Again, as I was pointing out and alluded to, with the amount of time I spent on it when I first showed you the slide, the maintenance piece can be very significant and sometimes overlooked. So as you're working with your clients, as you're working with your organizations, I would strongly recommend that you understand what the positive externalities of implementing the InduSoft solution is, implementing energy management, and understand how you can get approval and acceptance of that incorporated into your paybacks. We literally have found situations where, again, not only are the lights on 24 hours a day and the heating and cooling are going, but we've found situations where clients have doors that don't shut. They literally have to chain them closed every night, and for some reason internally, the message hasn't gotten through, but when we go with our energy management system, we make observations, we communicate that to headquarters. It allows that store manager to be able to have those things fixed much quicker than they would have, and sometimes it might be that way for years until they just get ignored, which is obviously unfortunate for the organization as well as the store. That's trying to be as professional as possible. In a little bit more detail, this kind of summarizes some of the numbers associated with that puzzle. Again, this is a key piece in helping the white-collar piece of it, the people that provide the funding, help make the decisions and provide the, many times, human capital as well to devote to energy management projects. Again, this takes place without affecting the current operations. We don't have them shut their store for a day so we can install this. We go in off hours and get these installed so they can keep on running and not have their operations affected. This, again, showing the detail associated with that 10-year cash flow that I alluded to earlier. It's very important to be able to, in my opinion, articulate to the white-collar piece of the world, and also have the green collars of the individuals that are pushing forward these conservation recommendations, understanding these aspects. Solar right now is, quite frankly, under getting a lot of heat because of the fact that to be able to provide ROIs is sometimes quite difficult, and the time frame associated with those ROIs can be stretched out. I've been in meetings and had conversations with individuals where their ROI was literally 72 years on a solar project, which is obviously not acceptable to a business. And when it gets down to it, for us to grow our businesses, I think we really need to focus on the white collar, understand what their hurdle rates are, what their needs are from a return on investment, and be able to design solutions to be able to accomplish that. And we feel that InduSoft is helping us do that and helping provide these returns for the clients. Some pieces that Fabio might be able to chime in on a little bit here, but I took about 3 different slides that apply to InduSoft specifically and how it works technically and how we're using pieces of those. Obviously, in this situation, the database is key, as well as understanding the alarms and the trend and general reporting as well, which can be done in the database, but it also can happen real time within the user interface as well. If you view it, a user interface in real time as an instantaneous report, it can sometimes help change the way you look at designing that user interface and also what information is put in there. And in emergency situations or critical situations, especially with high-level executives, if we can show them what's taking place in their store at that time and how that affects their utility bill or their operating expenses, we can prove to be extremely valuable and get approval for budgeting. Data flow within the application as well is obviously key for us, because how we're using this, it's essentially going out and capturing information, pulling it back, both at the site and also up on the server, and providing that information back into the client that's looking at it. And we also provide the opportunity to change variables. And by changing variables, that means we can control how the units are working within the building, so we can change settings. And by changing settings, not only do we have visibility, but we have control. With control, we can create change based on what we see in our trending and have positive influence with that without physically having to be there, which is obviously a big cost savings and an issue with regards to control. Again, reading inputs, executing a program, and then getting the updated outputs it might be oversimplifying that, but that's essentially what we're doing, helping clients understand what's going on, helping them make a change to it, and then helping them verify that that change was successful and productive, and doing that over and over. Obviously, pieces of this are automated. This is a very simplified version of it, but this is essentially the value that InduSoft helps us bring to help our clients and ourselves realize their full potential with regards to energy management. Just to summarize, the primary reasons why we went with InduSoft and what we're getting today, the primary reasons are along the bottom. The fact that they're proven, technology is extremely open. We are finding that in certain situations, a client might want to measure something that we never even thought they wanted to, and we're finding that the system is open enough to be able to just clip those on, obviously, after a little bit of coding. The flexibility of the system, again, fits into not only the openness of the architecture, but also how flexible the user interface and some of the tools are to be able to work with those changes that we make. And then lastly, how familiar the individuals are, as well as the technology that we've got within our network of technical individuals that we work to build solutions. For energy management itself, again, building the web pages, connecting to the database, being able to show trending on a dashboard and do it in real time, and then obviously being able to communicate flexibly are key reasons why we're using InduSoft and the leverage points for us to use it. We could have used a number of different solutions. We could use solutions that were sexy or more complex. We could use solutions that were, some would argue, more powerful, some would argue not, based on the fact that InduSoft is so flexible and so open. And I would say even when you look at the power of a technical solution, I think you need to, again, get back to the white collar piece and say, how powerful is this financially? And we found that with us trying to develop a solution after installing approximately 2,200 EMS solutions across 7 different solution types, 7 different other EMS solutions, InduSoft was what we chose to be the one for us to create a hybrid for a low-cost, very accessible solution for these businesses that, without being able to do that, nobody will essentially be able to penetrate with energy management systems. So I thank you very much for your time. I'll turn the screen over to Fabio and be very happy to try to answer any questions that you all have right now or at future dates. If you feel free to jot down my email address and send it on the way, and be more than try to help you.
Thank you so much, Tom. I do appreciate you taking the time to share your experience in Noble Conservation Solutions experience with us. It was excellent. And now I would like to open for Q&A. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat box from the webinar or even in the Q&A box from the webinar as well. So I have some questions here. Is it possible to integrate the InduSoft Web Studio into an existing web interface? InduSoft Web Studio is the graphical portion of InduSoft can be hosted in a web browser. So with some tweaking on the HTML pages that you have there, you could host the InduSoft pages within existing web-based applications. And you could do the opposite as well. You could create a screen in the InduSoft Web Studio to host a web-based existing application. Just to make a really quick demonstration on that, I'm going to open InduSoft Web Studio here, the development environment. There we go. And then create a new project called, let's say, webinar demo, just to make a quick demonstration. Okay, so when I create a screen, I can add ActiveX controls to the screen. For instance, I'm going to use, in this example, Microsoft web browser, which allows me to instantiate a web browser within the screen. So I'm going to change the background color of the screen to gray so I can see where the ActiveX control is. I can resize it, make it larger, whatever it is. Then give a name to the control, like for instance MB, my browser. And I'm going to create a button here. So when I click on this button, I want to open, for instance, in this case, the Google web page, but could be any other existing web-based application or web page. So when I click here, I execute the method and I show that web page within my screen. So yes, it is possible to host InduSoft in a currently existing web-based application with some tweaking programming on the existing application, as long as it provides this flexibility. and it's very easy and possible as well to host existing applications within the InduSoft Web Studio solution. So another question here is how fast, in which interval I'm able to collect data. Is it possible to collect data at 500 milliseconds for 50 inputs? So this is a very common question. What's the polling rate that you can achieve with the system? And the answer is it honestly depends on many factors. It depends on the latency from the sensors or controllers that you're talking with. It depends on the network bandwidth, the speed of the network for simplicity. It depends on how many processes, applications are running in the computer. It depends on the speed of the computer. It depends on many factors. Typically, we have been able for medium projects, let's say for 1,500 tags or 4,000 tags, we haven't been able to collect data every second or even half a second and store this data into a SQL relational database for future analysis. So something around 500 milliseconds is typically and usually possible and has been done, but you have to watch for physical bottlenecks, especially the bandwidth in the network between the sensors and the SCADA system. Can I configure and administrate a running EMS, or do I have to come back to your company for changes, especially changing value or presented data in the webinar interface? It really depends. InduSoft Web Studio is an open solution. We have this development environment, so it's more a financial solution decision than a technical one. You can come back to Noble conservation solutions or to InduSoft or to a system integrator to make changes on the application, or you can be trained on the product. We offer training about InduSoft Web Studio, and I'm sure Noble would be glad to share some training about the applications they deploy to end users. And as long as you are capable, you have someone technical that knows the basics of the product, you'll be able to evolve the system and make changes on the system yourself. But it always comes about the cost benefit. What's more interesting for you, to have someone on staff that has the knowledge to do that, or outsource it to a company like Noble to make changes whenever you need changes. And another advantage again is when you use InduSoft Web Studio, whether you make changes yourself on the application or you hire your system integrator or Noble to make changes on the application, the time to make the changes and consequently the cost for that is much lower than if you had to create a solution from the scratch in C++ or C#, because you use a development environment. Just like I demonstrated here, in a matter of seconds I was able to create an object on the screen and link this object to a website. If I had to program something like that from the scratch, would take me much more time, maybe for something simple like that, a few minutes, but not a few seconds. So when you escalate it to many changes, it makes a big difference. How can we see the InduSoft Web Studio from a client PC? How to set IIS? So we're going to have a webinar specifically talking about how to visualize data in remote computers and things like that. But just to make a quick example, I can open an application here. And there are three ways to visualize information on the thin clients: the web thin client, the secure viewer thin client, and the SMA thin client. The web thin client is when you use a web browser. So you just develop your application, the screens, everything as a standalone application. And when you are done, you click here to publish the screens as HTML. So those screens will be available to a remote web browser. So you can open Internet Explorer in a remote computer So in this case I configured to use HTTPS for encryption for security reasons. Allow. Here in the browser it asks for username and password. It downloads the application and I see the application here on the browser. So the screens, the objects, the different interfaces are available here on the web browser. So what you have to do in this case on the IIS on the web server is just really quick. Just go here to Administrative Tools, Internet Information Services. There you go. And then enable IIS. And the main setting is here. If you go to the default website under basic settings, you go to physical path and you point the home directory to the web subfolder of the application or to the root directory of your application, and just run the web server. Start the web server. Then from the web browser you can type HTTP, the IP address of the server, and the name of the screen or screens that you want to open. For security reasons, we strongly recommend to enable SSL, so you can use HTTPS instead of HTTP. And if you have specific questions about how to do that, I can cover this topic individually and send you some instructions by email, or even make another quick webinar just to show how to do that. But from the InduSoft point of view, is extremely simple. You just come here, create your screens, and then publish as HTML. And that's done for the web thin clients. Can I display streaming video from an IP camera on my HMI screen? The answer is yes, and you use that using one of the features from InduSoft Web Studio, which is the support for ActiveX controls or .NET controls. So just ask your camera supplier for the ActiveX control or .NET control that can be used to display images from the cameras, and then you integrate it to your project just like I did a few minutes ago with the web browser, and call the methods to connect to the camera and stream video within the application. And we have done it in many projects. So another question, it's the same one. Thank you. Let's see. Does it exist an ActiveX dedicated for energy saving systems, diagrams, analysis, etc.? I'm not aware of one ActiveX control specifically designed for that, but in the InduSoft Web Studio we have many controls, and just like Noble defined, they used many controls from InduSoft itself to create pie charts, Pareto graphs, different kind of graphics. So if you use, for instance, their solution, you use their templates, and all those controls and screens are pre-built, and you just customize them to your solution. Do you have an example of reports with text and bar graphs? I can show here an application that is an application created within the InduSoft Web Studio, but it is a generic app, so we intend to make it available for purchase within a few weeks here from the website. And it can work on top of existing applications, and what it provides is the ability for you to create dashboards on the fly, retrieving data from any database. So I can log on here, let's say as admin, and then I can create a new project here, like let's say EMS, for example. And then here in data sources, you link, this is an application. Everything I'm doing is during the runtime. You can do from the web browser as well. So we create here a dashboard, like for instance, building 1, and you can read data from SQL Server, from MDB files, from Oracle, from different databases. So for instance, this database, And then you create your queries. If you know SQL, you can come here and write your queries manually. If you are not familiar with SQL, you can go to this builder, and it shows the tables, and you can just add the tables to your project, and InduSoft creates the queries for you. Then you can customize the dashboard. So let's say I want a dashboard in this format, and this is my, I don't know, energy consumption, for example. Okay, and now you define the controls, the charts for each one of those portions in the dashboard. Like for instance, in this one, I want a pie chart using the column name as the label and the column value as the value, and I want to be multicolor. So InduSoft is gonna instantiate the control, query the data from the database, and display this information on the screen, just like you see here. And this one, for instance, could be from the same query or a different query, and I want to display a Pareto with yellow bars, for example. And here, for instance, from the same query, or could be a different query, I want to display the information, the raw data from the table. So you can keep building your dashboards like this, and this information is available from web browsers as well. Oh, and if you want to export this information, you can go to report. You can define how you want the report to be created. 2 charts per screen, 1 chart per screen, and either send to the printer or save as a PDF if you want to. And again, this is an application created with the product, so all those features are created using the native built-in tools in the product. You can recreate it by yourself from the scratch, or purchase the template from InduSoft or templates from Noble that provide the same type of capability. Another question: if we use remote desktop for display at desktop computer, then what will happen to the HMI? Will application run properly? Yes, the application will run properly. You can use remote desktop even on iPads and iPhones, and we have a technical note that explains how to use remote desktop, even to guarantee that remote users can you can have more than one remote user connected to the same server, but using the secure viewer solution from InduSoft Web Studio, each remote user could navigate through different screens and visualize different data at the same time. But there is not any incompatibility between InduSoft Web Studio and remote desktop solutions. So with that, we have covered all the questions posted so far. I would like to emphasize here that if you have further questions, feel free to contact InduSoft or even Noble Energy if you want projects for energy management system. I would like to thank Tom Ellinger first for his help and for sharing his experience with us. And thank everybody and each one of you for taking the time to watch the InduSoft webinar. Thank you everybody, have a great day or a great evening, and I hope to see you again in a couple of weeks for the next InduSoft webinar. Thank you everybody.